Hey everyone, it's Angie Harness with Keller Williams. I am here today to interview Rich Johns. Rich Johns is an environmental specialist. He's got all kinds of master certifications. He has over 30 years in this business, and he's going to just share some information with us about asbestos in the home, even though we think of that as a problem from back, in the 50s, and we saw those commercials back in the day. However, there were products still being used even in the 80s and maybe recently. Don't know all the details on that, but Rich is going to share some information that you really need to have about that. Hey, Rich.
Hey, good afternoon.
So Rich, we had a conversation yesterday and we were talking about testing for asbestos. And I did a little research this morning and I was really surprised, something I wouldn't have thought about. For example, I saw where if you have a popcorn ceiling, that potentially could have asbestos in it. Older flooring, if you have an older home. And then also I found that even in the 80s, there were still some like mudding products that contained asbestos. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. They said pre-1982 that the asbestos that was being used in the United States was no longer being used. But if you look at statistics, will tell you that there was some drywall and some drywall mud being brought over from overseas. And had you not paid attention to what the ingredients were, you could have been building a brand new house and you used joint compound for all the drywall. And so the issue is, it's not an issue is when you're installing it. The issue is if you ever have to disturb it.
Right. And then so how do people know?
The only way on asbestos you can tell if that drywall is containing asbestos is to take a bulk sample and take it to the laboratory. They actually do an analysis of it and tell you how much asbestos that joint compound or that drywall is containing.
Yeah. So just so you know, if you disturb it, if you drill into it, if you're breaking it up, anything like that, that's going to create dust particles, and that's what you can inhale and breathe in. And then that could potentially cause problems. It is a carcinogen, cancer causing agent. I'm sure you've seen the ads, mesothelioma.
Yeah.
There's all those commercials. So something to be aware of, especially if your home's older and you're going to be doing any kind of remodeling to it. My suggestion would be is either have it tested, or if you have any concerns at all, hire a professional who's going to come in with the right equipment to do the removal of the products. And that way you're not breathing in particles that could be unsafe in your home. And here's the thought, Rich. So let's just say I had a popcorn ceiling. I hire somebody, they come in, they remove the popcorn, and let's say it had asbestos. So now are there parts of my home that are potentially contaminated with asbestos?
Well, when we remove popcorn ceiling, basically what we do is we'll remove all the contents in there, build a containment to keep that popcorn ceiling in that room under containment. We actually spray it down wet and take it out wet, which helps keeps the particulate, all the fibers from becoming airborne. So basically, if they take it out right, put it under containment, using the proper air scrubbers inside the room, and then after they get done removing it all, then they have to HEPA vacuum and wet wipe the rest of the room to make sure that the rest of the room is not contaminated with asbestos dust.
And then you would probably want to test it afterwards to make sure there wasn't anything left, correct?
Just to be on the safe side to make sure it was done properly.
Yeah, I know. That's what I would do if it were me. That's really good information to have. And you do that testing, right, Rich?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Awesome. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was mold. We're seeing, it seems like we're seeing more of it, and it's becoming more of an issue. You were telling me about a house that somebody bought over in Sunset Hills. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. It was about an $800,000 house on 10 acres, roughly around 4,000 square foot house, beautiful home. Unfortunately and unfortunately, the house had been added onto several times. It had 3 crawl spaces. It had originally the house was built on a crawl space. Then they built a new addition, a new kitchen, which was now on a basement. And then they built a new master bedroom, which was on a crawl space. And they bought the house and had a home inspector came in and did a home inspection, but he was not looking for mold. Well, unfortunately, they noticed a wet spot in the ceiling in their family room around the fireplace, which improper flashing will cause that. We went in, did a mold inspection, and actually found it in the attic. All 3 crawl spaces. It's got a drop ceiling in the basement. There was 2 or 3 water leaks. There is now mold on the floor joists and subfloor and pretty much the entire basement. And the poor homeowners had signed off and agreed to buying the house as it was. And now they're dealing with around a $35,000 mold remediation project on their new house they bought.
Yeah, that is absolutely no fun whatsoever. I had a client, I sold their house in St. Louis, and they had, prior to putting it on the market, had it inspected, and there was mold in the attic. And so they decided to go ahead and they wanted to have it remediated before they sold it, which they did. And then one of the people, it wasn't you, obviously, they fell through the ceiling, and now they've contaminated the entire house. It ended up being quite an ordeal and quite a mess for them, but they did get it remediated. I do want to tell a little story on you, Rich. And you have a lot of experience, a lot of certifications. You know what you're doing in this business, and it really does set you apart. I had a listing, which I know you remember this, and the buyer had a mold inspection, and this particular company said there was mold in the basement. And so it was a walkout basement. On the back wall, it was insulated, but not drywalled, and there was plastic over the insulation, and you could see just across the top that it was dirty, and it wasn't all up and down the insulation. Well, this particular company said it was mold, and it was going to cost, if I remember, like something like $3,000 for the sellers to remediate for it. Well, it didn't make much sense to me. I thought, well, if that's mold, why is it just only across the top, and why isn't it all up and down? So I called you, and you came and looked at it for them, and you identified what it was. It was, what'd you call it? Clitus something?
Cladosporium mold that grows on dirt soils on the outdoors. It loves dirt. And then we pulled a bulk sample, sent it to the lab, and come to find out it was just dirt and spider poop.
Yeah.
I could say spider doo-doo, but it wasn't. It was spider poop. That's what they said.
So it wasn't anything serious, and that was amazing because it saved my clients $3,000, or roughly $3,000. So that just for those of you listening, if you're going to have your home inspected, you really want to have an expert look at it. And I know this from you, Rich, is the only way to know for sure is to send it to a lab, correct?
Correct.
So yeah, this company didn't do that. They just said it's mold, and you're going to pay us a lot of money to do something that does not need to be done. I will not say what that company was. It was not you, as we know, obviously. So just real quick, Rich, we know that I want to kind of drive this point home. I always tell my clients, I want you to get a sewer lateral inspection, because that's the inspection that's it's going to give you peace of mind, or it's going to save you thousands of dollars, because that's always an expensive fix. And I would say it's the same thing with a mold inspection. It's going to cost you roughly $300, $350, Rich?
Yes.
Yeah. So roughly around that for a mold inspection, which when you're buying a house, you might not want to spend that money. However, if there is mold, then you just saved yourself thousands of dollars, because it's never a cheap fix if you have to have a house remediated for mold, and it's your health. Anything you want to add to that, Rich?
Well, it too, and there's mold in every building, as we talked yesterday also. There's mold in every building. It just all depends on what it is and what level of mold that's in there. Every time you open your house, mold spores come in. But it's just the what severity is it? Is there an issue or is there not? And we can come in and look and see water staining and think there's mold or think there's mold spores. But if it ever goes to court, naturally, we always got to worry about legalities. So testing it and sending it to a third-party laboratory for them to do the analysis of what the test you pulled, that covers everybody and protects the home buyer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree with that. I mean, you're investing in a home, you're spending thousands of dollars, six figures in most cases at least. And you really want to make sure that your investment is protected. It's very important. Oftentimes we want to save the money and don't want to pay for some of those inspections. However, if there's a problem, you're going to be glad you did, for sure. The other thing that we talked about was just indoor air quality in general, things like duct cleaning. So tell us a little bit about that and why that's important, Rich.
Well, basically, a lot of people get misscrewed about the air duct cleaning in a home, but your ventilation system, and then a lot of people also get confused that heating and cooling uses two different systems. You have one set of ductwork that's in your home, and every time your system's on, it's like a giant vacuum. So that's why I like to educate people how filtration, putting good filters, not the 49-cent throwaways. Funny story about that is the first indoor air quality conference I went to, he held up a 49-cent filter, said this is called a furnace filter. The reason why they call it a furnace filter, because the furnace won't fit through it. In other words, there's no filtration. Right when the filter is getting ready to collapse is when it's filtering the best. So pleated filters. So back to the ductwork, everything that's airborne through your house, you open your windows up, there's pollen outside, so it sucks it in like a giant vacuum, runs it through your furnace. First stops it makes is a filter, and then it heats or cools it and blows it right back out into your house.
And so what kind of issues can that cause if people, don't get their ducts cleaned and it's just breathing that air?
Well, a lot of electric furnaces have an issue with growing mold around the cooling coil area because of the design of the system. A cooling coil is designed for the air to flow through during air conditioning season. Well, the electric furnaces pull off the coil. They're not blowing through. So you get dust around inside your coil, inside your furnace, and there's your food source. And now you have a moisture source that you're creating from the air conditioner. And guess what grows inside your furnace? It happens a lot. And then It's just getting pushed out into your house.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good at all. Our bonus daughter and son-in-law, the kids keep having like these skin issues. When I was reading this morning, it makes me wonder and they're in a very old, like modular home over in Illinois. And it made me wonder I wonder if it's the house that's causing some of the problems. I mean, I don't know, but
the whole thing is that, Angie, if there's an issue in a house, your ventilation system pushes whatever issue you have inside that house. I can give you, if I got time, I'll tell you a real quick story. I went down to Union, Missouri. This lady was deathly getting sick. Her husband is a farmer. There's something you don't think about. I went in, I pulled several air samples in the house, looked at it from the attic to the basement. Her husband is a farmer. So what does he do? He removes crops out of the field. We had a wet summer. So what he did is he was coming in, taking his clothes off. His wife was handling the clothes. And he goes, oh yeah, he said, our machines are black, full of mold from all the stuff that came off the crops. So he basically brought the stuff off the machines and the crops into his house, and his wife does the laundry, picks it up, shakes it, checks the pockets, throws it in, probably rubs her nose, rubs her face like everybody does, and it was making her deathly sick. They had no issues in the house. They were bringing it from the outside to the inside. So an indoor air quality problem is not always a problem with the building. It's what we create in the building.
Well, that's one of the things I love about you, Rich, is that in I always appreciate when I have people that I can call on who I know are going to be honest, with my clients. The story I told is a perfect example. Somebody was trying to make money off of what people don't know. And that's why I was so glad I could call on you and have you come look at it, because I knew that you were going to, if it was mold, it was mold, but we were going to know the truth. And I think that's just so, well, that is important. It's important to know that you can have a trusted professional who's going to tell you the truth. So you don't spend money you don't need to spend. And then two, if you do need to spend it, that you're doing it for a good reason. And I think sometimes that's why people are reluctant to do certain things, because they're not always confident in what they're paying for. And I love that about you, that, if you tell me my home's unsafe, I believe you. It's unsafe, and we're going to do what we need to do to take care of it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to do it.
Well, you're just a good guy, Rich. That's why everybody loves you. The other thing that people should know you do, which is a big deal, is you're doing house clean outs now. So that's kind of
Yes.
cool. Not fun. So
Not
tell us
fun.
a little bit about that.
I have a crew that's very good at it. If someone buys a house or a building that is just full of stuff, as we like to politely call it, because they say one man's junk's another man's treasure. But if it's full of stuff, we'll remove all the stuff and get the building or house to where it's habitable, not inhabitable. So we started doing that too a couple of years ago.
Yeah, you sent me some pictures yesterday of when you did it. And oh my gosh, I was like, wow. I was a little bit surprised of how much stuff there was.
Well, if you look at a building, the person who is selling the building for him, if you look at the building before and then you look at afterwards, he says it's worth like $15,000 more just because it's clean. Well, which it is. People look at it, they think it's a dump, and you clean it up, and now it's a building.
Oh yeah, it makes a huge difference. It always makes a big difference. Clean is king when it comes to real estate. I mean, even if you can't, don't have the money to update and do all those kinds of things. If bare minimum, you have a home that's clean and sparkly, it's gonna be perceived at being a higher value. That's 100% true. 100% true. Rich, how do people get a hold of you? Tell us about your business. Tell us about your new business and all the things.
Pure Solutions Environmental Services. It's been around since 2007. Basically, you can call me at 636-791-3022. That's 636-791-3022. Or you can email me at puresolutionses@gmail.com. I'm usually available 24/7.
And Rich, there's a whole bunch of letters under your name. Will you just real quick, I'd run through what all that means, because it's a lot.
A lot of people think I'm certifiable, as they like to tell me. I'm a certified indoor environmentalist, a certified mechanical hygienist, a certified mold remediator, an air systems cleaning specialist, a master certified mold remediator, and a ventilation system mold remediator.
That's cool. So you guys remember Pure Solutions. If you need to have your home looked at, whether you're buying a home or you're in your home and you're like, maybe I want to just have it checked out, you can trust Rich to come and check it for you. I'm going to tell another just quick story and then we'll jump off. I had a client who was buying a house, and in one of the bedrooms, we discovered there was water leaking from the roof behind the wall. Long story short, I call Rich. We want to make sure there's no mold. He brings over some fancy camera, and he stuck it behind took the outlet off, stuck it behind the wall, and looked all around. And there was no sign of mold. And it saved my client's stress. And in this case, I was representing the buyer, and it saved that seller from, potentially having someone else come and say, oh yeah, you've got a mold problem, when there actually wasn't. So I always just appreciate people who say, nope, it's not a problem, when it's honestly not a problem. And yes, it is when it honestly is. So call Rich at Pure Solutions. And Rich, thank you so much for coming and educating us today on how to have a healthy home. And this has been Angie Harness with Keller Williams.
Thank you, Angie.